Fire briefing. I'll open up with some comments and then we'll look forward to the briefing. So government's chief responsibility is to keep people safe. That's why it's so important that we get together like this to prepare, to collaborate, and to really unify in our commitment to protecting our people, our communities, and our lands. But first off, I just want to say thank you to our firefighters for the work that they do. These men and women are bravely out on the front line, working long hours in rugged terrain, hot temperatures, and sacrificing time with family to do that for us. Their sacrifices really cannot be calculated in terms of dollars spent or acres burned or not burned, as the case may be. They do all they can to keep us safe, and we must return the favor by doing all we can to keep them safe. While we cannot control the weather, we can take steps to mitigate the risk of severe wildfires by continuing to focus on two things. First, one, aggressive attack on all fires, and secondly, to work on prevention, prevent the fires from happening in the first place. With every fire, we must respond with one goal, and that is to put the fire out safely and as quickly as possible. Regardless of where a fire starts, we must apply the same operating principle. Aggressive initial attack is not enough. We must pursue a policy of aggressive attack on all fires until they are completely extinguished, so long as firefighter safety is not compromised in the process. The smaller a fire is, the easier it is to fight. It requires less resources, and it's just easier before it gets out of control. Last year, and I'm really proud of the work that the state did at DNRC and with our partners, we kept 95% of our fires to 10 acres or less. That's a remarkable achievement, and really shows the work that was done. We have to continue to work to make that a reality this year as well. So far, in 2023, and this is really my second point, 87% of the fires we've seen so far this year were human caused. So the people of Montana have a responsibility here as well. We have to do better. It's a responsibility of every Montanan and visitor to our state to do their part to prevent and to prepare for a wildfire. The best way we can to support wildland firefighters is by preventing wildfires from starting in the first place. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matt for the briefing.
Well, good morning, Governor, and thank you for the invite today to update you and Montanans on current wildfire activity and take a look at how current and forecast conditions may affect wildfire activity here. We'll do a quick introduction around the table before we get going here. So,
okay,
Director,
great.
Would you like to kick us off?
I'm Amanda Kester, and I'm the Director of the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation.
And my name is Matt Hall. I'm the Fire Protection Bureau Chief for the Montana DNRC.
Sean Thomas, the Forestry and Trust Lands Division Administrator, also known as the State Forester.
Good morning, Wyatt Brampton with DNRC. I'm the Deputy Forestry Division Administrator.
Corey Callan, I'm the Deputy Bureau Chief for the DNRC Fire Protection.
Good morning, I'm Rebecca McCormick, NRCC Meteorologist for British Wildlife Service.
I'm Dan Borson with the Bureau of Land Management and one of the Northern Rockies Coordination Center Predictive Services meteorologists.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
So these two play a vital role in keeping our wildland firefighters and fire managers up to speed on fuel and climate conditions and weather that influences fire behavior across the state. Today, Dan's here to provide forecasts and insight into what the peak fire year has in store for Montana. Dan, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. And I'll go up and present.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So just real quick, Predictive Services, we're multi-agency. Our main function is to think strategically about where resources need to go and to generally provide outlook for what the environment's going to be the next couple of months. Helps preparedness, helps our partner agencies figure out what's the best plan of attack. One of the best parts of that is being multi-agency. So I work not only with my federal partners, but our state partners. They're in both of my work units. It's a great environment for me to be fully engaged and aware of what's going on. So where we are right now, number one, drought is existing west of the Continental Divide. It actually started last summer. That was the one area that was the state that actually had some fire season. And it's been persistent throughout the winter months into the spring. And we are actually seeing some fire activity over there. We've had just enough moisture from thunderstorms to hold things off. So we've been getting up to a point where we're almost seeing a cascading increase in fire activity. We're not there yet. And then we got a heat wave coming in. It's going to change shortly. So that's one thing we really want to stress as a message. Be prepared for big change. And then the other thing that's going on is the weather pattern globally has changed to El Nino. That means that we're going to be warmer and drier as we get to the later part of the season. So fire season could be prolonged. However, that also often represents an opportunity for our partners to get into the landscape and do some of the fields work that helps prevent fires from getting really big. Real quick, right now, all the large fire activity is actually just to the west of Montana. Idaho, eastern Washington, they're seeing the bigger fires shown in the flames. All of our fires have been managed at very quick, fast, small response levels. Here's the drought status across the region. Everything that you see in northwest Montana started about June of last year. It was not in drought status last year in April. So we're seeing the landscape change. The two areas that are in dashed brown is where we've seen the most change over the last month. And the Continental Divide provides a very clear delineation of where we have concerns for most of the area. The north central Montana is getting drier. I'm kind of on the quick side. But taking a step back and looking from a continental perspective, the Montana piece of this drought is actually part of a larger drought area that extends well up into Canada, but also into the Pacific Northwest. And this actually paints a little bit of one of the fire season stories, which is the smoke that's out there, which, you know, people always think, hey, fires, where are they? The smoke's impacting me. Well, right now, the Montana fire season is really being driven by, or has a large component of Canadian smoke. There's where all the Canadian fires are. 10.2 million hectares, that translates to 25 million acres burned in Canada, and that is projecting the smoke from time to time into the region. We've got a beautiful day here in Helena. It's actually nice across the state. We had a nice cold front come across, but unfortunately, with as much fires up there, do not be surprised to see smoke come into the state, and it may not just be our fires. It may be from the Canadian. So I mentioned the drought, and one way to look at drought is through the precipitation measurements and how much moisture has been taken out of the landscape. But longer term moisture trends are a little bit concerning. How much of a deficit do we have built over multiple years, and what is that doing to the groundwater availability? Using satellite detection equipment, particularly the western half of Montana, it shows that it's drier in the groundwater level than 97% of other years. As a person that's done this for a while, one of the things that makes me think about it is as soon as we go hot and dry and plants are getting stressed, the reservoir for them to tap into isn't really readily available. To put that into a sort of numbers, and this is the most standout chart that I came up with today. Looking at northwest Montana, those three counties up there, Glacier, Flathead, and Lincoln, are missing 20 inches of moisture somewhere or more somewhere over the last 5 years. And that's not easily replaced by one rainstorm, 3 rainstorms, or even entire season. So that area does have concerns that are going to linger for a while. But that's the greatest potential for a real sudden onset of dryness. However, the entire west of the half of the state is still missing moisture over the 5-year period. So we knew we were dry coming into the season with the drought. We were really banking on a snowpack to help us out. If we can get the snowpack, we'd be good. Well, unfortunately, the snow under-delivered in the Kootenai Basin, the Penderel Basin, and the St. Mary Basin. So 3 of those areas up there did not do as well as we hoped they would do. And that, unfortunately, now some other parts of the state did great. We didn't do nearly as well as some other states further south and west, but we had enough snow cover to help us, just not in northwest Montana. And then May came along. And, throughout the winter, it was much below normal temperatures. Any snow that fell was being held on the landscape, and then May hit. And we had a record high May temperatures up in the northwest part of the state, and that really started melting the snow rather quickly. And for a lot of areas, we transitioned into almost an early summer as the month went by. And this is a trace of the snowpack for the Kootenai Basin, and it went out about a week before any other year that we've seen. And that's always an alarm sign. What years does it compare to? Well, it was some years in the 70s that were earlier, or just as early. But that's a sign that when we lose the snow 3 weeks early, what is the landscape doing? How are things beginning to unfold and transition? So, holding that background information as to what the landscape was looking like as we went into spring, I'll get back to that in a second. Over the last 60 months, or 60 days, so from mid-May to mid-July, what have we done precipitation-wise? Lo and behold, the Continental Divide shows up again. West of the Divide, we're drier than normal. East of the Divide, we're all above normal. And again, during the last 60 days, temperatures have been well above normal. So we're just continuing to throw at northwest Montana conditions, which make it drier and warmer faster. And I should stress that while Lincoln, Flathead, and Glacier counties were the major area events the next tier is something to be really vigilant about, because when the heat comes, that area will transition quickly as well. Okay. Busiest slide. I promise you will not see another slide that's this difficult. But we run some calculations on the characteristics of the moisture and other things that tell us what the growing season looks like and how that possibly translates into fire. It uses nighttime temperature, day length, but also the water content of the atmosphere. Now, the temperatures being so warm under that heat wave in May, and this is using northwest Montana, we saw the fastest ever growing season that we had seen from mid-April through part of May. And that, from a fuels perspective, is the vegetation kicking in earlier than normal. And where does it want to go as soon as it loses any sense of moisture? We've been lucky to get some moisture, but really it's been growing faster than normal. In fact, the growing season was 2 weeks ahead of schedule. And as soon as you go from the 1st of August to the middle of July, in terms of fuel availability, you just add on to the stress that we may have as a fire response. Okay, now that was one chart. The next chart is the dead fuel moisture. So what's the moisture in the sticks on the ground, 3 to 8 inches in diameter? This is actually the Helena area. So this is northwest zone PSA 11. And what it's showing is 1,000-hour, we call those 1,000-hour fuel moisture sticks 3 to 8 inches on the ground. It is just about to approach normal right at the beginning of the heat wave. So I'm showing this because it says, hey, the area, the next tier that I'm worried about is going to start coming into place shortly. And that to me is a real critical thing for everybody to be aware of, that we are just getting to the cusp and we're going to see really heat waves through the end of the month, and that's going to cause a problem. The other last piece that we try and pull in is what are the live fuels at live plants actually doing? We have people, firefighters that go out and cut samples, put them in the oven and find out what's the weight of that, how much moisture is in there. And their information is saying that we're still at about 120 to 140% of the value that considers when the fuel goes inactive. What does that mean? It's still a barrier. Right now, if we're at fire to go to landscape in the mid-slopes and it's encountering shrubbery, it's going to kind of slow down going through that. The grasses on the south aspects, they're becoming more available. But the shrubs, they're doing a little bit better. But look at the satellite data, we can see that the stress, anything that's yellowish or reddish on this chart, means that the plants are not feeling as good as they should this time of year. And again, it's not just northwest Montana. It's starting to project into that next tier, which is the Bitterroot Valley, the Helena Valley, and then even the Front Range. So where are we going from here in the next 8 to 14 days? Really strong heat. Is Helena going to see 99 degrees on Saturday or Sunday? It's very possible. Hundreds are going to be seen in some part of the state, and the moisture is shutting off. The mechanisms for us to get the thunderstorms are just not there anymore. For the rest of the season, going into August, September, and October, we see that the pattern favors above normal temperatures, and really below normal moisture for the critical end of the state. It's not a real wet time of year anyway, so seasonally, we don't see a lot of moisture to change the landscape, but the dryness that's out there is most likely to stick, and seeing above normal temperatures, particularly over the western end of the state, are going to, it might really just prolong fire season. And that's something to be a concern in terms of how long people are out there. And the El Nino that is developed that I mentioned earlier, the confidence is off the charts that it's going to persist through the winter months. And that's a concern because if we look ahead to 2024, don't want to look too far ahead, but it is kind of a potential for a below normal, above snowpack, above normal temperatures throughout the winter. So we would be worried that whatever we set in place now may be something that we continue to live with as we go into the next year. The drought outlook, given all the other slides that I mentioned, just show really no change expected. So where we have the problems, we expect them to be set in stone basically for the next couple months when fire season hits. So for this month in July, the projections were for the northern Rockies that the northwest corner of Montana, which is this one piece up there, was our one area of concern. As we go into August, we begin to spread it more into the glacier country, over into more of western Montana. And one thing that should be really clear for a lot of folks is when we say normal fire potential for the areas, the rest of the state that's in white, that still means fire, right? We are still going to get fires. We're still going to have some fires that cause some problems. Just the biggest, largest fire potential is in the northwest part of the state. But the remainder of the state still should be definitely prepared, especially when this heat kicks in. Going into September, no real changes occur. One thing that I am worried about is even if we somehow manage to start losing Canadian smoke, the fact that upstream in the Pacific Northwest has the large fire potential, we may still be eating smoke in some form. And then as we get into October, the signals aren't quite as strong, but I do have concerns that if we do kick in this period of hot and dry, we could maintain fire season a little bit longer, though there's good news with that. People can be in the woods doing the work of the fuels projects. So the main takeaways, the drought started, it's continued last year, it's going to continue to spread for the short term and intensify as far as we can tell. The heat waves the rest of the month are setting things in motion towards more areas becoming available for fire activity. So really, I would not be surprised if over the next couple weeks the fires become a little bit more resistant to control over the western end of the state, and that the smoke is going to continue, but it may not be always from Canada. It may be coming from some of the other states upstream. And I hope that provided all the information that you guys were hoping.
Dan, it looks like we have a confluence of circumstances in northwestern Montana. The historically low precipitation over the last few years, the higher temperatures in May, and then the lack of additional precipitation here this year, all kind of coming together to make that the most critical area in the state. Is that correct?
I believe that that is correct, and the key, as you mentioned during your earlier remarks, is the quick responses and making sure folks are prepared for that, and the local homeowners being cautious are the only things in the way of making those fires be able to get large.
Yeah. The other thing I took away from your presentations, it sounds like although it's Lincoln, Flathead, Glacier, the fact as it's warming up now here in August, that danger zone is expanding to the next year down in here into Helena Valley and along Rocky Mountain Front.
August 1st always seems to be kind of a benchmark date for all of a sudden the fires just want to get much larger. So we're right at that cusp. And those folks that are in that next tier, exactly what you said, they need to be really vigilant as we make this transition.
And just from my curiosity, does the Canadian fire season follow the same sort of schedule that we have here in the U.S.?
Usually it lags a little bit longer. The key to this Canadian fire season was the fact that they did not have, or they had a weak snow cover in April. The May heat melted it out fast, so they kicked into fire before the green up phase. You know, sometime in April, May, the grass turns green and you don't get fire through that. They never had that really occur because of a lack of moisture. And then when the May heat hit, their fires got large and became
But
problematic.
in a normal year, the Canadian fires would start after the Montana fires.
In some years, yes, they still get some of the prairie fires in April, but yeah, in general, it does take a little bit longer for them to kick in.
And does their fire season typically end when our fire season ends?
It can end earlier as the cold fronts are a little bit more aggressive at bringing in air mass change up there. So they could see much different conditions in September, whereas we may be holding on to the heat and dry.
Do other people have questions for Dan? I thought that was a very thorough presentation. I appreciate you bringing us up to speed. It certainly gives us a clear idea of where we really need to pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the forecast and insight there. Before we discuss fire activity, Governor, I want to touch on the importance for all Montanans to prepare themselves and their homes for wildfire right now. There are simple but important steps Montanans should take to prepare their families for the impacts of wildfires and smoke. Additionally, we can greatly improve the chances of our homes surviving a wildfire by creating and maintaining a buffer in the ignition zone around our homes and other structures. The potential for fast-moving wildfire means that we need to be prepared to evacuate. Right now is the time to create and practice wildfire evacuation plans with your families. I encourage Montanans and our visitors to go to mtfireinfo.org to learn more about preparing for wildfire evacuation planning and fire restrictions that may be across the state. Montana has experienced a relatively slow ramp up to the peak of our fire year this spring and early summer, with rains producing just enough to dampen that early activity. To date, we've had 705 wildfires that have burned 1,217 acres. As you mentioned earlier, 87% of those fires are human caused. Firefighters across the state have been incredibly successful with aggressive initial attack, keeping fires small and quickly bringing them under control. Our wildland firefighters have taken advantage of this slow ramp up in activity to conduct more training, further ensuring their readiness while assisting our neighbors across the West. Resources from Montana have supported fire suppression efforts in Idaho, Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Michigan, and Canada. This valuable experience will better prepare them to fight wildfires in Montana. Our training and safety program has wrapped up training sessions for the year, providing instruction to over 3,200 wildland firefighters. This includes over 350 Montana National Guardsmen and over 1,800 local government fire forces. This training ensures that local and volunteer firefighters are safe and successful in suppressing wildfires in their communities. DNRC personnel are staffing 7 interagency dispatch centers, 46 wildland fire engines, 6 helicopters, and 3 fixed-wing aircraft throughout the state in support of our direct protection and county co-op protection responsibilities. Additionally, the DNRC County Assist Team is ready to deploy. The County Assist Team is an all-hazard incident management team formed to support rural and volunteer fire departments when wildland fire exceeds the capability of local resources. No matter the condition on the ground, our firefighting resources stand at the ready. Governor, as you heard in Dan's presentation, weather conditions are already changing, leading to an increase in wildland fire potential. Counties are responding to the changing conditions by closing open burning and implementing burn bans at the local level. Across the state, wildfires will start and move quickly. As Montanans, we work and live in forest and grasslands, which means that we all have a responsibility to prevent wildfires. We need the assistance of all Montanans to reduce human-caused wildfires and prepare for increased wildfire activity this summer. Preventable wildfires threaten lives, property, precious resources, and put our wildland firefighters at risk. So please, do your part this summer to prevent human-caused fires as wildfire conditions increase. Governor, thanks for the invite today and really appreciate your support for fire protection in Montana.
Yeah, and Matt, thank you for your leadership in getting Montana prepared to fight these inevitable fires that are going to come as the landscape dries out and the precipitation ceases. It's important, and you've done a remarkable job. As we've heard today, while we've had a slow start to fire activity, we're likely to see a rapid increase now as the weather's changing and the rain stops, and also the potential for a prolonged fire season. As Montanans, as Matt, as you noted, we all play a role in preventing wildfires. It's critical that we all stay informed so we can protect our firefighters and communities this fire season. Keep in mind local fire restrictions as you're out recreating on the landscape. Stay up to date on fires that are burning in your area, and be responsible outdoors. Again, 87% of the fires we've seen so far this year have been human caused, and we all have a part in making sure that campfire doesn't get out of control or sparks don't get off the swather, whatever it is that's going to start that fire. And as you mentioned, Matt, be prepared by having an evacuation plan. If you're in an area that's vulnerable to fire, you have to be ready to go. Worse than the loss of structures is the loss of life, and you need to get out of the way. Secure your trailer chains. Maintain your equipment. Reduce fuel loads on your property, particularly around structures. The better prepared we are, the safer and more effective our firefighters can be. They can focus on putting the fire out and not rescue efforts. Together, we can keep our loved ones, our firefighters, and our community safe by reducing the risk of wildfire. Again, Dan, I want to thank you for being here today and give us that thorough briefing, and Matt, for your preparedness. And the message we're trying to communicate to the Montanans is, let's work together and be prepared and to protect structures and lives and livelihoods. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.